Congratulations, all of you. Um, I wanted to start with talking about the iPhone and the structure and everything, but decided that no, instead, I wanted to. Um, there's one thread that binds all of you as filmmakers, at least when I was watching the films again, it really struck me, was that y'all are not efficient filmmakers. And I use the word efficient value agnostically. There's this sense that a story should be efficient, that within a scene, a protagonist has to be established, the intent has to be made absolutely clear, the rhythm of the film has to make sense. But all of your films, there's a languor. There's the kind of patience with ways that you allow your protagonists to walk, to stroll, to sort of sculpt space. And so I wanted to start with asking all of you individually, what is your relationship to this idea of efficiency as a filmmaker? Do you want to start, Saurav?
I think you're talking about in general, the space.
The pacing, or this idea that, if a protagonist has three objectives, and you have to establish the first objective within the first scene, second, the way instead all of you
Mhm.
with your films have the pace is slower, you're taking your time, the conflict, so to speak,
Mhm.
floats in and out. The point is not to see a protagonist's journey as opposed to experience a space
Mhm.
that's taken up by these people, So that your relationship with this idea of efficiency.
Mhm. I think it for me personally, for this film, it came from the space, in general, how the mountain is you can't manipulate the time factor out there. Like, you just go along with how it functions, for the cloud parts, for the, like, it's so dependent. We are completely at their mercy, so we literally have to adjust towards it, and not the other way around. So I think that was a blessing in disguise as well, like, not to be too hurried. It's not that I can levi my choices or like my aesthetic towards, rather be acceptable to whatever it offers and to make sense out of it also. you know
That makes sense because even the very first shot of the film, it's this old man walking, and then he's talking to the first kid and the second kid. And then for the first 5-10 seconds, you think the story is following the old man,
Mhm.
and then you realize no, it's following the kid. So no, that makes sense that you're taking it as it goes. Prateek?
Yeah, we're not efficient, and and it's not really an aspiration also, because yeah, there's sometimes too much value given to that word of being time efficient about things, and with it just, I think it, how do I put it? There's no anxiety, or at least for in this film, there was no anxiety to establish anything. You again, like sort of says, we're working in a certain space, and um, establishing all that is equally important than to establish the character or his or her want or conflict or that kind of thing. So we are willing to arrive at somewhere rather than give that this is the starting point, and sort of ease everybody into the film. And because you want the film to be a little unpredictable, meandering almost, but it can just then take another turn, especially in my film it's more drama and everything. So I like that kind of change, that shift of tones and things like that. So I'm coming from there mostly. Yeah, being efficient is good if you're doing a thriller and all of that. I feel it'll work better.
Okay.
In if you're languishing too much in a film like that, then maybe not so much. So
I mean, I think the whole point of being economical is to be able to be wasteful elsewhere. So and where you
that.
save here, you can be more luxurious in your, spending time elsewhere. And so with the ellipse in cinema, you always, that is the economy, how you jump, and but then that allows you to, being able to spend time is made possible by the ellipse also. So it's kind of, uh, I mean, I think um, you need economy to be able to be wasteful. So, yeah.
Yes?
I feel that the efficiency in terms of the film and the process of making the film can be determined by from where the process starts. And for all of us, it starts from the script, and that dictates that what is the true efficiency of the film, how we are economizing time, what is the character arc, what is the milieu that we are trying to build overall into the film. And specifically to the films that we all have put together, and speaking of Óbur, the film that I made, I felt that it was a decision which was taken while weaving the story only. That while I came closer to understand what Kashmir is, and quintessentially how we have seen most of the stories being told around that milieu, and what is the kind of stereotype or the pacing which is done around Kashmir. Like, Kashmir is almost like you're in, like, you're in some most of the time that I've seen Kashmir, it's almost like some action thriller weaved around, and there is never, like, exploration of human life. So when we talk about efficiency here, I would say that it's the text that dictates most of the efficiency in terms of the pace, in terms of everything that goes into, putting it all together. And it's, as Prateek said, that it's great to not really be efficient, like in terms of try to really find your own rhythm and the beating heart into the film, and at whatever pace it and whatever BPM it goes. And I feel that maybe, like, towards the end, particularly in my film, like I usually try to do is that I give some time to the audience to really evaluate the efficiency of it, which is something that I feel that efficiency can be quantified by asking that, have you earned it? So I always try to earn that extra 1 minute right before that, curtains goes down or it just fades to black. That in that in that in that 23 minutes or that 1 hour or 3 hour of the film that we take you through, it's an entire phenomena that changes outside the theater, like sunsets, you go out, everything changes. And then the questions that you ask yourself, that was that rhythm that you constructed in the film, did it complement the film or not, and were you able to efficiently tell your story? So told efficiently in the most efficient manner and truly is the efficiency that I strive for in the film, and hope to construct it further also.
I mean, in your film, especially for us, I don't feel your film ends as much as culminates. Like, there's this sense of ease and meandering that happens, and then finally in the last 10 seconds you see whole life flash by, and it's this sharp sense of something like stuck up your nose. So, like, that sense of what you've done with rhythm and efficiency with your film especially is quite marvelous. Archana?
Yeah, so I think as every filmmaker has their own kick, something that they want to pursue. It happens film after film, like, somehow you just pursue that. I think I've always been interested in the noise that is between events. My life has different plot points. Like, I passed my 10th standard, then 12th standard, then I graduated, then I got a job, then blah blah blah. But in between these plot points, there is noise, this white noise, and no one really remembers it, but actually that's what really shapes us. And I was very much interested in capturing that noise, actually, like the mundane moments, like just the walk arounds, just capturing the space, just these boys, they in my film, basically, they clean the plates with sand, for example. That is something that's not a plot point, it's not necessary for the story, but it creates this interesting noise, which captures the essence of the space and the culture. So that is something that I'm interested in. And in in a efficient script, actually, one would not have that, because that really doesn't move the plot forward. But that is something that I'd like to personally pursue. So yeah.
Your film is a complete mood piece, I felt, because I think you don't realize what the story is about, what you're trying to say, what is the quote unquote conflict, because the film just goes on, and there's these, I don't know what to say, sublime moments of looking at the desert and the way the sands are shifting, and it's so harsh and it's so violent, and you're totally okay not having sort of the 3-act structure protagonist take this through. So yeah, that makes sense. So all of y'all worked under certain structures, which is y'all are shooting with an iPhone. Let's get the iPhone question out of the way. So that's one structure. One is shooting with a smartphone. I know in previous interviews you'll have spoken about how shooting with something small allows you to be more malleable. It allows the person in front of the camera to feel less that like they're actually standing in front of a camera. It feels less like the myth of cinema, like a big set and a big camera that you have to perform for. So talk to me a little bit about using the iPhone for, how did you utilize the iPhone very specifically, or the smartphone generally, to tell the specific stories? Did these stories come from the structure, or did you having found the stories fitted into the structure that you were given? And the structure could not just be the iPhone or the smartphone itself, but also the 5x4, 4x3, the aspect ratios that you all chose, which is very specific. So talk to me a little bit about these structures that you all were grappling with while thinking of how to tell this story. Who wants to go first?
Just because
Hasna mana hai, Prateek.
because I shot my film on anamorphic, so maybe that is. Again, shooting on anamorphic, we thought that we are trying to capture the essence of Kashmir, and we are going to have a lot of landscapes in our film. So at the same time, there are these moments where you are extremely close to the characters also. So Anand, who's my DP, who's around, he's sitting somewhere. Anand,
do you want to stand for a second?
He's phenomenal. He's phenomenal to have achieved what we achieved on an iPhone. So I'll tell you one thing very interesting. It was my first meeting with Anand in my house, when I received the iPhone and we were just testing the iPhone. So Anand and I, we decided that let's just be very fair to the iPhone also. Let's not design the story around what iPhone could do, because we are not shooting a commercial for iPhone that we have to be like, oh, this is what it does on action mode, this is what it does on macro lens. Let's just tell your story like you are telling with any other traditional tools or any other camera body or lenses that we do. But what is very interesting for all of us to discover also during this process is, let's see how iPhone takes it. So we would always challenge iPhone, and they were extremely it was extremely difficult because we didn't know that the battery juices out when you go in the extreme climate, like in -10 and further, below it, we were losing the battery really, really soon. But we had some backups of the battery, but at the same time we realized that sometimes, because we are just holding the camera, we have to change the lenses, sometimes our fingers would freeze, that we are not able to do it. So there were some discomforts also of doing it, but there were also some advantages. The advantages that came very handy was that when I was shooting in the village with an iPhone, people were not facing the camera for the first time. Otherwise, I've seen that in the past when I've shot my first feature and I was in Allahabad with a big camera. The moment I would ask people from just cast on the street, on the go kind of crowd, and I'll ask them to say a line or perform, they would pump in so much of histrionics in it. They have to be like, oh, is it camera? Oh, let me perform. So I'll be like, oh, there goes the line, and then the shoulder will go back, and they'll be so conscious about how they look. The moment they saw the iPhone, the stakes were so low for them. And that's what we were seeking for, the stakes to be really, really low. We wanted people to behave like the way they behave in their houses. We don't want just because it's Kashmiri, so the palette is going to be very. We wanted to shoot a very happy, tragic comedy in Kashmir, and we wanted to and possibly our methodology would not have changed even if we would have shot it with Arri or any other camera. What was interesting for us was to discover that iPhone kar payega ya nahi kar payega, and we were towards the end, we were happy ki कुछ परेशानियां थी, but most of it we braved it, and we were able to find a fix of it, like focus pulling and so many other things. So yeah, over to Prateek.
Same, just in Sonipat. Yeah, man, it's a nice camera. And finally, at the end of the day, it's a camera.
Let me flip the question. Yeah. Would you shoot on an iPhone again?
Depends. It has a lot of elements, like Faraz said, it's disarming. It's so it helps. It's got because the technology keeps changing, so they're coming up with newer lenses, this, that. So the gamut is increasing. But at the same time, I don't see it as a this or that kind of choice. It's not just the budget and all that. These cameras, small, big, whatever, they give you choices about options of shooting in locations which otherwise you wouldn't have done, shooting with a mobile unit which you wouldn't have done otherwise. So all that are the great pluses I feel. And within that, I think the choice of aspect ratio and all, because these are all giving you more options to play with and just explore a little more. So I feel it's good for somebody who's starting off, who doesn't want to get into the whole jing bang of where do I get the camera from, where do I get everything from. So it's just a good initiation. It's like you don't feel that you're taking on too much. It's okay, just a phone fits in my pocket. Two people can do it. One person can do it. All that, I think it sort of eases people into filmmaking, and that's a good thing. That's the best thing about it, I feel.
Do the rest of you concur, or do you?
I mean, I wanted to shoot anamorphic, but my lens didn't come on time. So, like, oh, what's the next best?
Definitely one big struggle is shooting in real spaces without permissions, and that's definitely one liberating thing, because shooting on an iPhone doesn't, no one bats an eyelid. And even if, like, while we were shooting our film, we got stopped by cops twice, thrice, and but then we were saying we're only shooting with a phone, and then it didn't go very far. But for our film, we wanted to also use the the image of a video call, and so that was a starting point, that we're making a film with a phone. So let's make a film around relationships, and with using the medium of a WhatsApp call, and where the character's actually operating their own image, and that's an image that we're all use every day, and now it's a part of our lives. So it's a different kind of an image to a cinematic image, and that became the kernel around which we worked on the story.
Saurav?
I think when this opportunity came around, I was already in chance of exploring this woman character because of my observation of my relative. So it just came perfectly. So here it is an opportunity. So I'll use this to just to see around how she is as a character. So if I can build around something, based on how she used to narrate, how she used to cross the borders and all the paraphernalia surrounding, the people, politics. And yeah, when it came to the medium as such, as I think, like Archana said, mine filters everything didn't arrive at time. So it become our mantra ki we will shoot it as like that, because the rest of the world won't get this kind of facilities like filters and all. So that becomes our mantra ki. So if these people can shoot like this, this beautifully, then why can't we? So we wanted to empower people also, if these guys can shoot the mountains, the people around. So yeah, it was fun. Earlier, we thought we would shoot in actual border, the chaotic borders of India and Nepal.
Yeah.
But somehow that the connection, the permission didn't allow. But nevertheless, in the mountains, there's another border, But it was fun how we move around. With the strength of the camera, but it was a lot of fun not to have any accessories around it and just to shoot around. But of course the weather part was a bit crucial. Like if you see, especially towards the end, you envision in certain way, but whatever medium it is, you just have to wait. And luckily, we got it in one shot. That's how, the cloud, everything ended up coming. And but we were lucky this, I think.
Did you plan that, or was that serendipitous?
No, actually, planned in a sense, no. Let me clarify.
Production design.
So I had a very
Luban.
I had a very traditional cliche kind of a ending, to be honest. But it was my assistant, Drishti, who told me ki, Saurav, why can't we do something like Taste of Cherry, lamba chhod dete hain. I was like, yeah, I've always loved doing long takes, So okay, let's give into it. So let's play cloud and all. It's like, let's mount a camera over here, and it luckily worked, So that's how we changed in the end. But we had a more traditional kind of ending.
And also, one part of the previous question was about the aspect ratio. Maybe we can start with Soumyananda here. Uh, I remember when this idea of vertical filmmaking, this concept started coming up, and people were talking about how do we project vertical films on our screen, which is rectangular this way. And one of the conversations among film theorists, whatever, was about the poetics of space, right? When you're having so much black space on two ends of it, do we have to fill every edge of the screen? Was one of the questions. And how much black space is too much black space? So can you talk a little bit, because in your film you keep moving, right? The black bars in the corners of the screen keep alternating, and there's a bit of poetry to that, I think. So can you talk about that very specifically, and all of you also talking about the specific aspect ratios that you all chose? Do you believe that you have to fill every pixel of the screen with your image? Or do you believe in having these black vertical rectangles of breathing space, or whatever you want to call it?
Yeah, I mean, I was actually a little horrified in in the lingo of OTT platforms. They talk about the real estate of the screen, you know, which
God.
is
What a
you know,
brutal phrasing.
where you kind of you think that, you know, there's the screen has to be like the more you use it, the better. But like, you know, shifting between aspect ratios, I've never, you know, found troubling personally. I mean, Wes Anderson does it all the time, and you know, you know, if the drive of the narrative is carries through, then so we didn't think twice about, you know, the WhatsApp conversation aspect ratio is vertical, and you know, it is blinkered. You don't see the world. It's entirely to do with the character and the face, and and then I mean, to me it doesn't jar, the you know, moving between you know, a 5:3 and the choice of each aspect ratio was to do with like we chose 5:3 because of it's more to do with character, not so much to do with landscape as with Óbur. We're kind of a little bit um, you know, blinkered into seeing one perspective at a time, and but then the vertical format came from the fact that this is how our WhatsApp calls are. You know, it you know, if we tried to fill the screen with it took away from the language of a WhatsApp call. So that was, you know, our choice was very pragmatic that way. And
But what about, for example, there are moments in your film where there's a call happening and you're seeing your protagonist's face, and then you have the camera again looking at him in the room, right?
Yeah.
And you keep moving between the two of that. Why did you think you needed that? Why would you not have been okay with just the WhatsApp call in those moments? Why do you want to pull away and show that, okay, this is the camera, this is the character in the room?
So I don't know, it's kind of, you know, first person, second person, third person, different tenses. So you have you know, the image of a WhatsApp call is not looking at the character. It's kind of, you know, it's very intimate. And so that kind of is a the way you see the face is very different. It's very whereas when you step back, and then that's more kind of allows for, you know, for you to maybe judge it in a different way, to you look at how the character is behaving a different way, like you're catching the lies or the, you know, all of these things. If it was just with the image of the camera, like as a WhatsApp image, then we thought it kind of gave different layers to you know, to look at it, you know, personally, as well as a little objectively from a distance, where you're kind of questioning, or you're kind of getting distance to think why they're behaving a certain way, and look at the undertones of what they're not saying.
I remember when I saw his offline for the first time, Archana and we got on a phone call and we were speaking about the point where it fades to black when he loses his eyesight. And we all told him that why can't you extend that moment a little longer, because we would want it to be longer just black, because we felt as audience more involved, because it, for that moment it becomes very imaginative, because your truth for that moment, that whether his hand is in his pocket or it's not, or he's just walking, is going to be very different. It's going to be such individual. So we just kept like telling him that it could be more, but it could be less.
We wanted like 5 minutes of black, but but then that became a little difficult to.
But because we all really felt that it was so well earned. So as long as that the sense of frame crop that we speak about, or the gate, or the aspect ratio, if you earn it, if your story is compelling and you earn it, you have earned it. Nobody, I mean, films, we call it the flick, which comes from flicker. It's because when we watch the films, it flickers that 25 times or 24 times. So every time as much as you're consuming the visual, you are also passively consuming fade to black in between. Every time we blink and we speak, we are consuming a lot of blacks in between each images. But I'm saying that as long as the conversation, as long as the performance, everything, story, everything is compelling, it's all fine. And I feel that in his film, because also it's vertical format, but also like human characters, like my face is vertical, it's not horizontal, so it gives you more room to compose them better. Like I was not getting distracted with what is there on the left or on the right, whether there is a tree or there are hills. I'm just more focused on what is this woman thinking, what is this man thinking, even in that confined space, but it tells the story effectively, like especially in his case. So even like going to black was compelling for me. Like I felt it worked really well. Could have been longer.
Actually, no, it's true that silence, like every second, felt more and more heavy, right?
Yeah.
That blackness, because more and more ambiguity was being, you don't know where it's going, where it's heading. So you're right. Good. But Faraz, what about you? Like, why did you filled the whole screen with your image? There's you everywhere.
So one thing was we wanted to have a very strong sense of character of the film, a visual character. So Anand suggested that anamorphic brings that very strong. It takes you away from that. Oh, it's been shot on iPhone. So right from the beginning, we'll get more spaces on the left and right to establish the geography, and especially because the film is about the cloud. Okay, it's about the metaphysical meaning of cloud. Like it exists in and over there there was this immense need of how can we pump in as much geography and as much life in the frame, rather than, because towards, like, while making the film, we began to understand it better, that this choice of shooting it on anamorphic is not about how opulent the frame is going to be, but how much more I can tell about this milieu, because this story, as universal it holds an entirely different meaning while it is set in Kashmir. Because of the internet ban that has happened in Kashmir, it's all the more so precious to speak about what how elusive the cloud is for the villagers over there and people who are so unknown about this technology, and how it affects the social fiber of Kashmir. It became very important that let's just go anamorphic about bringing the essence, but let's not get touristy about it. So we did shoot a lot of beautiful images about Kashmir and reflection of the hill in the water. And Anand would constantly tell me that, why can't you just put this one more shot in the film? What would it take? I'm sure I've put in so much effort. It's the right sunlight. But then I would tell Anand that we are like disservicing the film, because it looks so beautiful, but the film is about how this environment has so much of beauty, but it has the curse of beauty as well. So while everything is so perfect, but there are so much of imperfectness around this perfect environment that you see. While you see that this life looks so beautiful, snow-clad mountain, there is a horse, everything is just so scenic, but deeply inside, like, life is so affected just by somebody losing the data, which is so easy for us to take a backup in a city and to be aware of. But maybe for somebody living in that part and not being so aware, and to be standing, looking into the eye at technology and be so challenged about it, because it's not just about internet, it's also about the electricity there. I mean, while we were shooting it every day, it was a challenge to back up the data in the hard drive, because we will not have electricity for that long. So sometimes it will be very scary that we have shot it on an iPhone is full, we took a backup on a drive, but we cannot make like a second copy of it because hotel mein ja karke electricity nahi aa rahi hai, so it will just be for that certain hours. So we felt that let's just have the frame wider, let's just try to tell not really economize the story there visually. Let's have the environment be a very strong character in the film.
No, both your and Archana's films are about the internet, right? One is about too muchness of it, one is the too littleness of it, and both of your protagonists are teenage boys. Can you talk a little bit about what intuitively draws a story of the internet? What intuitively makes you relate or associate a story of the internet to a teenage boy?
There's something that I actually noticed amongst children is that in different socioeconomic classes, the way you use your phone is very different. Like I have a niece, she's 3 years old, and I limit her screen time to half an hour, like for example when I babysit her, other than that I try to keep her entertained with different activities and things like that. But right now if you go to suppose my nanny's house, and how the children are growing up there is completely different. Like, because the parents go to work, there's nobody taking care of the child, they have a phone and they really know how to use it since they are like 2, and their relationship with the phone is completely different from how probably it is with my niece at my house, kind of a thing, which I found very interesting. That that there is this whole construction of worlds happening there, and the amount of time that is spent on the phone is so different from what it is in a middle class house, for example. So I wanted to tell the story of this boy who actually he doesn't go to school. He lives in a desert. He doesn't have anything.
Did he have to be a boy?
Sorry?
Did he have to be a boy?
Actually, the thing is that the space that I chose, only boys work there. So that is the reason why I decided to kind of go with this, because I wanted to have this working child, which in that space, the women don't work. That's why. In fact, there's an absence of women in the film completely, because they don't get out of the house, and, they don't like to be photographed. They don't use the phone as much. That's a different kind of a thing completely. But this is what I was kind of interested in, and I actually put a Instagram like limit on my phone, like half an hour, because I don't even realize when it's like over. Like, suddenly it'll be like, oh shit, you're 30 minutes are up, and I'm like, fuck, like till tomorrow, like I don't have entertainment. But the thing is that the way our own relationships, I don't think I'll be able to live without my phone like for more than like a day. I'll really freak out, and I probably have the means to go and buy a new one, sort of a thing. But then I thought that, what if somebody doesn't like have this? Then how does imagination kind of take over? And what is real and what is not real is anyway like a big discussion in today's time. So that is something that I wanted to explore. But in a desert, because of the absence of anything, like of life itself. So yeah, that was my like how internet gives life in a lifeless place, kind of was my pursuit.
For us, this idea of, I mean, both of your films have this lovely shot of where the camera is just resting on the face of the character, and it says, like they say, it says a lot and it says nothing at the same time. But what is it that draws you? What is it that made you associate the story of the lack of internet access to that of a young boy?
It initially, I was very curious to just observe internet as a phenomena, like what it does, and like, you'd always think of these abstract questions, that what is the gender of internet? If internet was a being, how tall is internet? How fat is internet? How clumsy is internet? Is internet really funny? All of that. So I was just I was just randomly thinking about it, and I saw this documentary called Lo and Behold, and it's a very interesting documentary about internet by Herzog, and there's a beautiful sequence where you see these monks in New York, and they all are roaming around with the phones looking for network, and they are not getting on, and it's just such an ironical image where you would expect the monks to, like, there are certain images of a monk that, why would monks be searching for internet with a phone in their hand? And I've started to believe that it's just so interesting that we spend hours and hours on internet, and we put the most precious memory on internet, and internet has overtaken our life, like from our banking passwords to our most precious images, to our labor of love in writing, bank accounts. Everything is stored on internet, but we never question that can internet be fragile? And what if what if I can explain how fragile it is to people without being cerebral about it, without saying that, oh, can we do interstellar around internet? But then I was like, can we reverse it? Can I just tell people that, listen, we all know about what cloud is, but just like how this kid is unaware of cloud, like there could be something about internet that at this onset of AI that we are at, we might not be we might be just so unaware of so many things which are parallelly running as we speak. So just this curiosity led to me to explore this idea of what if we try to understand this concept of internet through this son and mother tale set in the hills, where internet is a phenomena and very elusive to the people who live there. And also I saw this very bizarre YouTube video of a member of parliament speaking about internet. And I will not name that person, but you can just go online and look for him. It's as farcical as AI is like our mother I. But I was so appalled that this person holds a chair in the parliament, and what he's speaking about is that about the cloud being real cloud, and when it rains you may just lose your data, and hence that it was just so bizarre, all these theories. So I was like, jiska jitna dimag hai usko utna internet samajh mein aata hai, and everybody has their own theory. There could be a very compelling film around this, so hence I put it together this way.
Saurav, one thing that I think connects both Faraz's film and yours is, despite being set in these politically fraught area, there's a complete absence of tension. Like, there's no sense that something's going to explode or someone's going to get caught. There's an ease, there's a charm, there's a sprightliness to the tone of your film. Was this intentional? Like, even scenes that could be, like, for example, when she's trying to steal things, you could have done something to the score, you could have done something to the way the camera is set up, but no, there's a sweetness in the soundtrack. Talk to me about these conscious decisions you made to leach any sense of violence from the screen, though it's present, but you never feel it.
I think my the whole approach around, because there are kids around it, so my whole approach has always been like to be as simple as it is. Of course, there's invisible tensions lying around. Like, instead of being too much vocal about it, I always try to give due justice to, like, the way how in real life they would move about. Like, there's a certain sense of 80 years old man moved from point A to point B. So I always stress upon the real, the rhythm of life. So yeah, it's just about being honest to the approach.
You didn't want to bring any sense of tension into the story?
For me, it's already too dramatic. Like, this is my full-blown drama. Like, I have never done, because my most of the two features which I have done, Invitation, Nimto, and Guras, my second film, it's much like very slow. It's very contemplative in a way it's set. So, like, I think more than that, it will to happen too much.
Prateek, Can you talk a little bit about the way you choreographed the factory floor? Because the way when the man walks, you're seeing people do like throw things around, and it's almost like it's almost there's a rhythm. There's a rhythm to it. Even the way the bells being rung, it's almost like you're trying to create something rhythmic and beautiful and choreographed from all of the chaos. Can you talk a little bit about creating that space?
So it's like taking from where we started, the efficiency of how we set up things. It's in a short film. How do you set up that? It's a hectic time in a factory, and workers are under the pump, and how do you do that? So for me, it became just the fact that they're on a timer in the restroom. It's that pegs where the factory is working at, and like you go through the place because we got a location which had a lot of depth and different areas, and it was just about tying it and making a factory which is buzzing, and you're always workers are trying to catch up with the pace of the factory. But at the same time, we didn't want to rush the story as if people are doing a lot of things. It's just trying to create an atmosphere on the a factory which is just working like clockwork. It looks chaotic. There's a lot of color, but there's some method to the whole kind of pace of it. And within that, because finally our inciting incident is laughter, and a long laughter and a very prolonged kind of laughter. So it had to puncture the tension that we are setting up without saying too much, without doing too much. So then that became very important of how we choreograph the space, how we organize the space. So from sort of lighting decisions which Ravi took and Anuj is here, it's like how do we light up a space? How do we chose 4:3 as the aspect ratio because we wanted to open up the space more vertically than horizontally, primarily because we were talking about superstructures and hierarchies and power and um, but at the same time not wanting to lose sense of an individual in this kind of big space. So the portrait shots that 4:3 allowed us, we just thought it worked better for the story, and to have a space which was sort of not just a backdrop for things, but you could clearly see, okay, there's a superstructure to it, that kind of a thing. So these were the kind of decisions that we were thoughts that we had in our mind while we were choreographing shots or character movements or things like that.
This is based on one of Chekhov's stories,
Chekhov
right?
story. It's the story is called, different translations call it different. It's death of a civil servant or death of a clerk or sneeze. It's by all these names.
Does the worker die there in the end, not the?
No, yeah, it's set in the Russian bureaucracy in the early 1900s, and the younger officer who sneezes on his boss, he sort of has an heart attack and he dies. So
Why did you switch it?
no worker's gonna fucking die in my films. Yeah, basically that. And see, our idea was to sort of create a world where people are on a timer and laughing can cause guilt, and so this whole idea of it's a mad space, and you push people to its limits, then strange things will happen, things which are not comfortable, and we sort of stuck to that, and just wanting to have just, how do I say, complicate things which are there, make it a little more um how do I say, not easy to judge whom to support. Okay, this guy is like that, but this is the worker, but maybe it's a, so just a little complex kind of mind space, which is I thought makes it a little nuanced in terms of what the space is, what human relationships are, and what power hierarchies and how human beings function in these kind of strange dynamic situations.
I was having a long conversation with a friend about why you chose to make the boss a specially abled person. And I mean, there's a very sharp way of saying that you needed him to be specially able so the worker can have his final moment of catharsis, his big moment where he explodes. Can you talk a little bit about writing this character as specially abled?
See, catharsis can happen without the character being specially able. I feel because you're talking about a heart attack, it's just based on a story. So heart attacks happen like that. In the original, it happens like that. The guy comes back home, sits on his chair, and dies. There's no build up to it or anything. For us, it became important because again, establishing we're doing a short film, and how do you make the boss less powerful, right? But at the same time, have all the power. So these kind of situations where you say, okay, it's my concern of I cannot see him anything except being a disabled man, or especially abled, or however we want to call it, because my concern is he's my boss, and I have to be in his good books, and all I can see him is as a disabled man. Those kind of questions became interesting for us, because then it went beyond the binaries of victim oppressor kind of a thing. And then also it makes a character not so easily, it's not easy to sympathize with a character like this, a protagonist like this, because he is an irritating person. He's insecure of where he is. He's an aging worker in a primarily young workforce. So for him, survival is a function of a lot of other things than just merit. So I think all of that sort of helped when we made the boss character of what he was, and sort of take a little bit of power away from him, but at the same time keep that power vested in him. So these were the big thoughts.
Archana, Faraz, Saumyananda, Prateek, Saurav, thank you so much for your artistry, for your time, your insights today. Really appreciate it. Thank you all for staying back. Thank you. Thank you so much. Have a lovely
Thank you.
night.
Thank you, everyone.